Well, hey guys, and welcome finally back to Bamm-It. I am John Michael Cletus and my great co-host here.
Mari Peterson.
And we are finally getting back to season 2. I know that we took a hiatus for a few months, and we wanted to do a quick teaser episode, this short episode here, just to talk about season 2. Of course, it's brought to you guys, as always, from Peridot Consulting and Marketing Outpost. And what do we want to say about season 2?
Well, first of all, there's a couple of things that haven't changed. One is your co-host. 2 is John Michael's ums. But then we have also made some changes to our music, you may have noticed. And our new voice on the show is Sid Rumley. And she works at Penny Cup. So if you're in Penny Cup, say
in
hello
Asheville,
to her.
for those international listeners. This is Asheville, North Carolina.
We have international listeners?
We do.
Okay, so for our international listeners, you cannot say hello to Sid at Penny Cup on Merriman Avenue in Asheville, North Carolina. But if you do, and you are here, please do stop in and say hello.
Yeah, so I'm a semi-regular of probably every coffee shop in town because I am a
coffee snob.
But I happen to live in North Asheville, and a very convenient coffee shop to me that I really like a lot is Penny Cup, and I'd go in a lot and recognize Sid's voice and knew that we were, just lining up perfectly, and knew that we were looking into season 2 and wanted to change some things up, and thought that'd be a fun little change up to change the voice on the hard intro. So Mari and I brought Mari there one day, and we had coffee and let Mari talk to her, so I wouldn't be the creepy old man talking to her saying I want to record your voice. But
really, that'd be a little bit different. Those people will say, I just want to take a photo. You just wanted to record her voice.
Yeah, it's as we're saying this, it's sounding a little bit more creepy than I think.
Sid actually took it very well. She's very nice. And so we want to say thank you to Sid at Penny Cup. And if you're around town in Asheville, you may see her in other places. She is also an artist.
Yes. So we have new music. We have a new hard intro. When we leave here, Sid also re-recorded our outroll, our exit, and our disclaimer. And we are introducing a new mid-roll that we didn't have in the last season. And mid-roll is just a break in the middle of the episode for sponsorship break. Starting out, we've got 2 great sponsors. Who are our sponsors, Mari?
Well, gee whiz, somebody actually wants to pay to advertise on our podcast.
Well, somebody's paying for something.
So I think that would be us, John Michael.
Oh, it's us.
So we are the sponsors of this podcast. We do hope to get to a point where we will have paid sponsors, because that would be nice. At least it could pay for the coffee. Yeah,
paying for coffee would be nice. So we were introduced a mid-roll, and we had Sid record that for us, and we're going to let you guys hear that now. So here is our mid-roll. And back from our mid-roll. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Just a little bit of a advertiser break. We're going to use that as a break point in the episode. So what do we have coming up? What is our theme of season 2? Mari and I met the other day to just really map out some ideas we wanted to do and wanted to cover.
Well, one thing I'm very excited about is we're going to do a couple of live podcasts this season.
Yeah, so live podcasts, some people, I say that, they're like, oh, how do you do a live podcast? It doesn't mean like a live showing, like tune in 9 p.m. on Tuesday. It means that a live podcast means it's on-site, live. Sometimes people can be there in front of people, and we're trying to do that, and we'll announce more of that in our social media and websites and stuff, that if you happen to be a local fan of this podcast, all 2 of you, you can come out and watch this podcast. And what is that podcast going to be? The one with that people can actually participate?
Well, what we wanted to do is really get behind the scenes of businesses and more than just an interview mode. So we're going to go to them. So one business in town is a business where the owner has started several businesses in town, and we thought he would be a good starting point get to ask him, what is it like to start a business? Why would you start more than one? What are your challenges? What are the things you would, advice you'd give to other people? So that will be one of our live podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't want to announce it yet, but
Yes.
in the future.
And it will be a question and answer sort of thing. And we're going to we have sort of very similar formats we had from last season where we might just interview somebody for 30, 45 minutes. But we also are going to have some segments where we do short burst interviews of 10 minutes interspersed with the subject matter that we're talking about.
So continuing on that note, another live podcast we may do is where we're actually following along with a new business startup. So John Michael and I both consult with different clients who are in the beginning stages of their business. And what we're going to do is interview them at the very beginning and then interview them 6 months later to see how they're progressing and what their advice would be.
Yeah, and that would be neat. And then we'll take those two interviews and we'll put them into one podcast, and that will probably come out later in the season because we're going to do one of those interviews closer to now and one later on, but it will be one episode.
So continuing along with business advice, we're also going to bring in some professionals who are in different categories of business. So John Michael works a lot with corporate attorneys and business attorneys, so we're going to bring in a couple of those to expand on those topics. I work with a lot of marketing creative professionals, so I'll bring in a few of those people that are website designers or graphic designers and so forth.
Yeah, and so we are looking to expand, bring in more professionals that would be beneficial for the content of this podcast. We also are doing those live interviews and more on site. We're going to focus on industries. I think the industries we're going to try to focus on is a podcast each, one for real estate, one for the brewing industry, one for restaurants, and tourism. Those are the main industries that we'll have a podcast on, talk about that, have interspersed interviews, 10-minute pop interviews interspersed with those, so that would be very fun.
We also wanted to talk more about the way that we work, and what we mean by that is both John Michael's firm Peridot and my firm Marketing Outpost utilize a non-traditional method of delivering our services. So the traditional method is to go into an office and work a certain number of hours and be in a physical space with your other coworkers. And we, like many other businesses now, are reversing that, where we actually work from home, but we have a centralized place where we can actually meet with clients, do workshops, and then all the other people that work in our organizations also do the same thing. So we're going to talk about this new modern day firm and that paradigm. What are our benefits and challenges we've come across?
Yeah, we'll have a whole podcast on the modern day firm, the new going forward, how technology has changed the traditional format of professional firms. And it is utilizing anywhere from a home office to meeting spaces, and it's the needs and expectations are different. We also are just going to have just straight up topical podcasts. I'm going to have some fun ones on, I'm going to talk all about tax notices and what to do and what they mean. That's probably
you didn't really mean that was fun, did you?
That's probably going to be the most fun, but sometimes those are the most it will be a very informative. The main thing about tax notices.
Are you trying to say marketing is not so informative?
I'm trying to say that tax notices are more fun and informative than you might think. It's nothing to do with marketing.
I usually just take those and put them in the shredder. I'm not supposed to do that, though, am I?
Depending. Some of them maybe.
What is this topic you're going to talk about called obscure taxes?
So obscure taxes is just a lot of just random taxes or tax loopholes or tax situations that just most people don't know about. Anywhere from 1202 stock to some other 338 transfer, just things going on that are more of in the complex world, like of tax accounting and stuff, but just kind of talking about what some of those are and what it means and how some people might sell a $5 million stock and pay zero tax on it because they did a 1202 election 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. That actually does sound interesting. The other two that I see on the list that I actually think will be very informative for our listeners is one is the nonprofit accounting. We have a lot of nonprofits in Asheville. In fact, I think several years ago I saw a statistic that we have the highest density of nonprofits in our area. So I think that will be helpful. What are you going to cover there?
Well, it's in your defense, Maury, it's nonprofit accounting and marketing. It's all about nonprofits that day. But it just anywhere from the tangibilities of budgeting and bookkeeping to like what does a 990. I mean, there's a tax purpose, but also there's a marketing purpose to a 990, because fundraisers a lot of time are like, well, let me see your 990. So it's in many ways a marketing tool as well as it is a tax compliance tool.
Well, and I also think that along those lines, on the completely opposite side, is a lot of businesses want to know, what is my business worth? So John Michael does a lot of business valuations. It'll be interesting to get more into that and the different levels and complexities of valuing a business.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be a fun episode. We obviously aren't going to cover the topics, but it's the nuances and the spectrum of business valuations and what we call rule of thumb valuations and what all of that means.
So then we're going to flip back to something that I guess if you're informative, I'll say I'm interesting. I'm just kidding. You're interesting as well.
Informative and interesting are hand in hand. Not
necessarily. The IRS tax guide is informative, but it certainly isn't interesting.
I think it's interesting.
So what we're going to do, this is our usual banter, is also talk about some marketing fundamentals. And so I will be addressing very specific topics that relate to local businesses, such as what are location cards, what is the new POS system, and I don't mean a piece of shit, but your
language, Maury.
Oh yeah, but your other POS system that you use. We may also talk about some of the biggest mistakes that I see in marketing that businesses make and how to avoid them. And we'll talk about what is the difference between marketing tools versus marketing strategies. So I often have to explain that because 90% of people focus on the tools that are tangible and sort of forget about the overall strategy. And then John Michael has introduced a new topic that I think will be of interest to a lot of listeners, and that is the gig economy.
That's going to be a fun episode.
And we're not talking about gigging like flounder fish gigging. We're talking about what?
Well, I'm really curious what you mean by flounder fishing gigging.
Have you never been gigging?
Gigging?
Yeah, that's
flounder fish.
That's actually a fishing term.
I've never heard of that before.
Wow. Okay, so we can get into that later when we talk about the gig economy.
Okay. Well, gig economy is you probably hear it a lot out there. We're going to talk about it, define it. But it's, some people make good living wages, but they work 10 jobs, and it's 10 odd jobs or 5 jobs, and any one job isn't the breadwinner, but they work at a lot of small things or are bouncing around, and that's sort of the new thing these days, and the new you see a lot of that, and any one job can't sustain a livable wage or doesn't have the hours, so people do 5 or 10 of those. And
so I would say that's where instead of people having to choose from a standard set of work style formats, they actually instead customize their work for themselves and their schedule and their lifestyle.
Yes. So that will be we'll have a couple short interviews interspersed in that episode of people that are actually living the gig economy and doing that and how they do it and what it means for them.
And I think that sounds something like, hey, I'm a realtor. Oh, I'm also a dog walker, and I do massages.
Yes, and I sell things on eBay.
And I sell things on,
And I do blogging on the side.
Right.
And I'm an Instagram influencer and get free travel.
Or I'm a secret shopper.
Yes.
So anyway, those are all examples.
And I do podcasts.
And you do, but you don't make any money from the podcast.
Well, that's true.
Not yet. So those are some of the topics that we're going to cover in this season 2 of Bamm-It.
Yeah, so this was just a quick introduction, just to let you guys know we're excited to get going on this, and we will be releasing soon. So this is a teaser, and probably within a week of getting this teaser, you'll be getting the first official episode. And enjoy our new hard exit as we leave, and we do want to thank you guys for joining us today.
Please be sure to review this episode, and for more information on who we are or this podcast, of course, visit Bamm-It.com, BAMM-IT.com.